Peter. Next question starts with Rob Simmons. What approach would you take to illegal immigration, and what do you think about the new Arizona law making immigration violations a state offense?
Well, first of all, illegal immigration is illegal, and we all would accept that fact. It's illegal. It's wrong. It's not right. Point two, we got to secure the border. A fundamental obligation of the federal government, is to secure the border. And their failure to secure the border in Arizona has led to the Arizona law, which replicates federal law, and that Arizona law, I understand, actually stands on the books of several other states. So I think that what's being done here is a political statement is being made about Arizona, but I would say, shame on you, President Obama, shame on you, U.S. Congress. You failed in your obligation to protect those citizens from people coming across the border, not just seeking work, but selling drugs and killing people, and this is wrong. I also picked fruit as a kid and worked with braceros, who were legal guest workers in this country. Here in Connecticut, we have legal guest workers who come to pick the tobacco and work in the agriculture. We can come up with a red card program for legal guest workers that's going to work so we can get rid of this illegal sub-economy that we have.
Simmons, does the government have an obligation with medical insurance, and what would you have done about the new law?
The new law was flawed in the process. The comment has been made that the Speaker of the House, 2 heartbeats away from the White House, said we have to pass it so we know what's in it. On that grounds alone, the law should be repealed. And yet, when you see the bribery that took place with Senator Nelson, with Landrieu of Louisiana, and with our Florida senators, that bribery of hundreds of millions of dollars to get a vote, that has to tell you there's something seriously wrong with that law, and I believe there is. And I believe there are options available to us to provide the opportunity for citizens to secure health care coverage as they desire and as they wish in a form that they want, where they have choices. Because America is a land of choices, and citizens in the United States of America should have choices. We should have the choice to get our health care insurance across state lines. Why can we only buy it here in the state of Connecticut? I get my car insurance, my life insurance, and my fire insurance from a company in Texas. I could get a better deal if I could negotiate. We need association health plans for small businesses to reduce their costs. There are a whole range of options that we have available to us to reduce health care costs and to come up with a better bill. None of them were adopted in this legislation, and that's why it's so serious.
Government policy and childbearing outside marriage.
I mentioned earlier the marriage penalty tax. The marriage penalty tax increases the taxes on a couple who get married, so that if a man and a woman are making $30,000 individually, they will pay less taxes than they would if they got married and filed for $60,000. That marriage penalty tax was eliminated under the Bush tax cuts, but will come back in January unless something is done to extend it. That is a clear case of where tax policy encourages families not to get married. My wife Heidi and my daughter Jane and I lived in Washington, D.C. back in the 80s. Public policy with regard to welfare rewarded families that had multiple children without the traditional relationship between a man and a woman. And yet, on the days when the welfare checks would come out, the guys would show up. I mean, there were guys in their lives, but they weren't allowed to be around in the household. That was clearly designed, or not designed, but it clearly had the impact of dividing those families in a very adverse way. So yes, well-intended public policy can actually work against the goals and objectives of the government.
So what went wrong with the war on poverty, and how would you alleviate poverty?
They say that the best social program is a good job. Good jobs alleviate poverty. When I was business advocate for the state of Connecticut here in Hartford, I collaborated and worked with an organization called SAMA, Spanish American Merchants Association. The philosophy of this organization, which was made up of people from 28 different areas in Central and South America, the philosophy of this organization was, we don't want public assistance. We want free enterprise. We want entrepreneurship. We want opportunities to work. That's That's what we want. That's what we want for our constituency. That's what we want for our friends and neighbors. But it's so difficult to start a small business in the state of Connecticut and in other areas. You get the business entity tax right off the bat just for filing your paperwork. You got red tape. You got the EPA, the DRS, the DOT, and all of the alphabet soup. And we've done nothing to alleviate that. That's why companies have gotten so large, and that's why the state of Connecticut has lost 15,000 companies folded last year, mostly little ones. You know, Marcus Garvey had the philosophy that you could rebuild your inner cities and the black community through free enterprise. And there's a Marcus Garvey Park right here in Hartford, Connecticut. That's the philosophy that's going to eliminate poverty and provide freedom and economic opportunity and economic power to those who don't have it.
The Second Amendment decision on federal gun policy.
Reading a portion of the amendment, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right is a right. And it's in the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights has been around for a long time. So you don't treat it as if it's a permit or a option. It's not optional. It's a right. It's a right that we have as citizens in the Bill of Rights. And then it says, shall not be infringed. Shall not is mandatory. It's not discretionary. Shall not means shall not. You shall not infringe on that. So I think the Supreme Court argument was correct. If you don't like the Second Amendment, then set to work to amend it or delete it and have fun doing it. Have a lot of fun doing it. That being said, I have safely owned and used firearms since I was 12 years old. 37 years in the military, and in the CIA, I handled all kinds of firearms. Never had an accident, never committed crime. I've trained people, both foreigners and domestic, in the use of a multitude of firearms. Never had an accident, never had a crime. So you see, it's really about the people and the people's responsibility and their education to manage this piece of equipment. That's really what it's all about. And that comes through personal responsibility and education.
From Rob Simmons, 2 minutes.
I'd like to thank Chris Powell and his daughter, who's been the timekeeper, for doing such a great job. Thank my wife Heidi, my daughter Jane, my son Robert, who's not here tonight, for their love and support during my life of public service, whether it was CIA, whether it was U.S. Army, whether it was U.S. Senate staff working for Goldwater and John Chafee of Rhode Island, whether it's the Connecticut General Assembly, Congress, or even business advocate of the state of Connecticut. They have always been there with me. Family is important. Without family, we couldn't do what we do. And speaking of family, I want to mention my grandfather, who came here from Ireland, the oldest of 7, went to work at 14, joined his father in forming a family business at 18. At 40, took over the family business, and before he died, owned and operated 5 small family businesses. The Simmons family didn't come from Ireland for a stimulus package. They didn't come for a government program or a bailout. They came for freedom and opportunity and hard work and entrepreneurship. That's what this country was all about. That's what built this country, that American dream. And that American dream is at risk in America today because of a federal government that is too large, too expensive, too powerful, and too invasive. We're losing our freedom as Americans to this federal government. And I feel strongly that I didn't spend 2 tours in Vietnam fighting for freedom to lose it here at home. Free enterprise creates jobs. Free enterprise creates prosperity. It gives us economic security, and 70% of all new jobs created by free enterprise are created in small business. We cannot prosper if we don't preserve and protect small business in this country. We can only be free if we can keep our money to make choices in our lives. All my life, all I've ever wanted to do was serve the country I love. And I hope that I can have a chance to do that one more time.